Hello and welcome to the Banker's Fresh Perspective series. I'm Joy Macknight, Deputy Editor at The Banker, and with me is Fiona Gallagher, Head of Securities Services, Global Transaction Banking at Deutsche Bank, to talk about the changing dynamics in security services. Fiona, thanks so much for joining us today.
Great, thanks a million, Joy, and thank you for having me.
There's so much going on in terms of changing customer behavior and also market dynamics. What are the big changes that are happening in security services?
I think it comes back to actually how we're living our lives. We as individuals expect so much information and so much technology change that is influencing what we expect from our providers, and particularly around security services. So as a result, we're just seeing a huge wave in terms of expectations around efficiency, being a lot smarter with our information, and also with the changing face of regulation. People are expecting more and more in terms of looking at their data, or looking at their processes, and making sure that they're doing the right thing. But to me, it all comes back to, if I'm experiencing life very quickly, I need my providers to be able to do the same.
You talked a little bit about technologies. Obviously, there's a lot of emerging technologies coming through. Which ones do you think are most applicable to security services? Where are they being applied, and where are they making the most impact?
For me, if you think about it, it's all about efficiency around processes. So one of the favourite things that we've been working on as a team is around chatbots and how they actually speed things up, get the right answer for the customer. But also, as well as that, what I really enjoyed about the process we did with Debbie, our chatbot, was actually, we had a whiteboarding session, and then very rapidly, through kind of agile working, which is obviously the key buzzword, we then implemented Debbie, and it just reduced the time for our client, reduced the time, and really the kind of boring challenges that some of our operations teams have. So I think anything around AI, API, where you can speed things up is great. And then the other thing that we're seeing, and again, going back to your own personal experiences, anything where we can use really cloud-based technology just helps make us smarter, better, and quicker.
Can we go into a bit more detail about Debbie?
Yeah.
I know you worked with your partners, but also you leveraged the Symphony platform. Can you explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, so if you think about it, it really is just all around trade queries. We did a workshop with our client, and very quickly we realised there was a challenge around the Hong Kong market. The fact that all of these queries were coming in really very last minute, and basically it was just taking an enormous amount of time, and the same sorts of questions. Has it settled? Has it settled? Basically, we looked at Symphony and thought from a security perspective that was tremendous. Also because of the fact that we had clients as well on Symphony. And basically we put in effectively, if you think about it, our chatbot basically answering a question, but also could talk to our client's chatbot. And the time just reduced from, we say 3 minutes, but actually in a busy day, you could have multiples of these queries out there. And so when you actually look at it, you can see 3 minutes going down to literally an instant answer. And again, we liked the fact that there's security because we were using Symphony. 2, it's scalable because this is an example for one market, but we could do it in other markets. But also it's something that makes sense both internally for our own operations team, but also something that we can leverage with other clients as well. So again, it was just basically taking a system, plugging into it and making life easy, which is all, effectively what API is all about.
With the pace of change that's happening, how does a bank like Deutsche Bank really, sort of prioritize certain areas over others?
That's the biggest challenge, right? Because everybody comes in with a brilliant idea. And I think one of the things that we as banks have done traditionally is we try and fix all the problems, and which is why you end up with huge spend and perhaps not always the results you want. So for us, it's all about what can we do quickly, what will make the most sense. And we've been doing a huge amount of these kind of workshops or whiteboarding sessions with clients to really drill down and say, what's the biggest pain? The challenge that you have with security services is actually our processes need to be refined, and you almost need to do that first before you put in technology. And I think that's been one of the challenges historically, is that people tried to put robotics on top of a bad process of AI, and AI on top of a bad process doesn't actually deliver what you need. So the first things we've been doing is, where can we streamline process, where can we look at service, and where are the biggest drivers from the client side, and then also we want to make it interesting. Where can we have wins step by step? And a couple of the programs we've been working on, so for example, Debbie, the chatbot, or indeed we've been doing a lot with our data centre in Ireland around liquidity and intraday liquidity. It was also a couple of programs that we could do where there wasn't a huge amount of cost. We had the systems, the infrastructure, we were already on Symphony. It was very easy to kind of adapt. So I think if you look across those types of pillars, again, you know, where can you be quick to market? Where is the pain point for the client? Where, if you improve this process, it'll have real benefit elsewhere. All of those sorts, I suppose, are the elements that are there. But fully agree, Joy, we would be, you know, you could spend all the money in the world trying to improve things, and actually what we need to make sure we're not trying to do is boil the ocean, right? To come up with actual tangible examples for us and for the clients.
Okay. And my last question is something that you touched on in your answer to the first question, which was around regulation. How can banks really adapt to the challenge of regulation?
So I have another day job. So I'm Chief Country Officer for Ireland for Deutsche Bank as well. And that's where our Global Centre of Excellence for Data is. And so it was great for me. Before I moved to Dublin about 18 months ago, data was this beast. I didn't really know what it was. And the team were fantastic about sitting me down, looking at applications, seeing what you could do. When I then think about the types of regulation we've had recently, so whether it's been GDPR or whether we're looking at CSDR, and again, we love four-letter acronyms, but really the whole thing is, let's look at our information, let's see what we can use, and let's see where we can look at a market or look at a client and maybe predict where they might have challenges around intraday liquidity, predict where they might have frequency of trades failing, and really use the new regulation to say, to a client, we think you can be a lot more efficient around this process. Or by the way, we're seeing that there's seasonality in your intraday liquidity, or we're seeing that, you know, we're consistently seeing this same issue around trade settlement. With the new regulation, that may mean that you may have a fine, you may have some other challenges. How can we work together? The way I think about regulation from a securities settlement perspective is that the regulators are looking at us to be their partner and actually, again, to work with them and the clients to deliver, I suppose, an infrastructure and an ecosystem which is better for the end investor. And so if you take those points and then you actually look at all of the great tools that we have, it can become an interesting rather than a totally challenging development.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your insights, Fiona.
Great. Thank you very much, Joy, and delighted to be here with the banker.